What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Big Red Weekly. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year, so your subscription would definitely mean a lot to me. Today, we're going to be looking at how does the Eastern Conference differ already than it did, last season, just a few weeks ago. So, let's just kick it off here. Here are the top 8 teams, if you already forgot, that were in the playoffs this past season. The 76ers, Nets, Bucks, Knicks, Hawks, Heat, Celtics, and Wizards. Now, most of these I kind of feel like they're probably going to stay pretty similar. The other teams that did not make the playoffs were the Pacers, Hornets, Bulls, Raptors, Cavs, Magic, and Pistons. Now, I think most of those are probably going to be pretty similar. I think probably the Hornets and probably the Pacers are probably going to still be in that same boat. They might be fighting, for that, 6 through 8 spot as well. However, I think most of these teams, I think this switches up a bit because the biggest team obviously the biggest changes so far to their team has been the Chicago Bulls. Now, where do the Bulls now rank? If you look at their starting lineup, who do they have now? They have Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, who's going to be their small forward, DeMar DeRozan, who was it, Patrick Williams, or is he on the Celtics? Oh my goodness, I'm already gonna forget. They have some kind of Williams on the Bulls, and then Vucevic at your center. Coming off the bench, you already have your backup in Alex Caruso, so that's already a very solid 6 players. Now, I don't think this team is going to reach the finals by any stretch, but it kind of begs the question, where are they going to finish off in, this upcoming season? On paper, I think this team looks pretty good. They lack defense, and that's the biggest thing. Really, you have a little bit of defense in Lonzo and Williams, but as a whole, Vucevic is slow, and LaVine and DeRozan they've just never been known for defense or just subpar defenders. So, offensively, I think they're pretty fine. You have Kobe White as your backup 2 guard, but beyond that, you kind of need some other guys. Now, the Bulls just signed another center. Was it Tony Bradley? Something Bradley. They just signed him to a 1-year deal, so I'm assuming that might be their backup center. I know they sent Lauri Markkanen, or they're trying to send Lauri Markkanen away, one or the other. I don't know if he's already gone yet. But this Bulls team's looking pretty good. So if they can make 1 or 2 more trades, maybe get a slightly better backup shooting guard with, maybe a forward or something. And I think, another forward who can kind of switch between the 3 and the 4. I think you have a really solid team, especially if you can look for some defensive guys who can shoot a little bit. I like this team a lot. Of these 8 teams that were in the playoffs before, again, I'll kind of go through it real quick. Actually, the bottom 2 teams are who I'm kind of worried about the most: the Wizards and the Celtics. The Wizards just got rid of Russell Westbrook, and I kind of have a hard time feeling that Bradley Beal is going to stay around long term. So Wizards more than likely are going to try to trade him, are going to try and bring in other young talent, more picks, obviously all that usual jazz. But how does that affect the Wizards, and where does that rank them? I think that probably puts them out of a championship or, playoff contention. I just don't think, obviously before when it was Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook as the lone stars, they got stuff done, but I think that's more out of the willpower of Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. Now they have, Kyle Kuzma, Spencer Dinwiddie just got, I think it was a sign and trade to Washington. These guys are just okay. Who else did the Lakers send over to get Russell Westbrook? Montrezl Harrell and somebody else, KCP. So this team's got some okay players, don't get me wrong, but these guys are not going to lead you to any kind of, real playoff run. And I think the Wizards kind of drop. Now for the Celtics, I think this team's kind of weird because they have a lot of great players, but they don't seem to be able to fit or mesh together very well. The only times they it kind of seems like they do mesh is just because they're already that good. The Celtics obviously ended up letting go of, not trying to retain Kemba Walker at all. And Kemba Walker actually went over to New York, and I think that's super solid because if New York got like one more guy that whoever this player is definitely needs to be better than Kemba Walker. But I think right now, New York's got already a better team. They kept a lot of their other guys, Alex Burks, guys like that, Derrick Rose. So this team, along with Julius Randle and now Kemba Walker, I think this team already got better. Now, obviously, Kemba makes them a little bit worse defensively, but offensively, they got a guy who can go get a bucket. Now, obviously, because Julius Randle struggled with that in his playoffs, Kemba Walker's been doing this since college. You give him the ball, and if he'll make something out of nothing. Sometimes he misses, sometimes he doesn't, but he can make something happen. I think that's kind of what New York has been missing. So right now you have your main offense, kind of going through Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, and now, oh my goodness, what was it? Kemba Walker. Oh my goodness, I don't know how I just forgot that already. But this team's looking pretty great. I think they probably need, probably a halfway decent center or forward. Julius Randle, because obviously they have two really good guards in Derrick Rose and Kemba Walker. And Julius Randle, if he can at least be better than he was his past playoffs, which I don't think is asking too much. But if they can get another forward or center, then I think this team's looking pretty good. With that being said, I don't know if they necessarily make the 4 seed, but I think that 5 or 6 seed is not totally out of possibility. But let's go back to the Bulls now. So since Kemba Walker left the Celtics, now where does that kind of leave the Celtics? They also got rid of, who was it, Tristan Thompson, and I think Enes Kanter left too. Because if I remember correctly, he was on the Celtics, and now I think he went to the Blazers, if I remember correctly. So this team, or it was the other way around. I don't remember. I think maybe he was on the Blazers and he went over to the Celtics. I think that's what it was. I think I had it twisted around. So, and that was one of the biggest things that the Celtics lacked, was a true big man. Obviously, Enes Kanter's not the best big man in the league, but he's decent but he's good at being a big man, and that's kind of really all that they need. But I think the Celtics are kind of weird. I think they either need to go after, build kind of around Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. They don't seem to work too well together. I think the only reason they can kind of play okay together is just because they're already too good. But they play the same way. They're both slashes. They're pretty much both are great all-around players. Their games just don't complement each other. So I think if this upcoming season, if they can't get anything going because they just got a new coach, now I know you're going to have to look through the positives because a new coach is going to change offensive schemes, defensive schemes. So these players, it's not easy to just go through a new coach and, be able to snap to it and be okay with the new system going through. But if they go through it, some good things could happen, and we're going to have to look more at the positives. But I think this season is going to be important because this is going to show who should the Celtics kind of, try and build around. Is it going to be Jason Tatum or is it going to be Jaylen Brown? Now, Jaylen Brown's a little bit older, only by a couple years, but they can manage one way or another. But I would probably say overall, it would probably be better to go, and build around Jason Tatum. Other little news, the Heat got Markieff Morris. Now, that's not a huge signing, but Markieff Morris is a great role player. He can play either that 3 or 4 if you really want to. He could play that small ball center, but he's a great 3 or 4, a backup or even starting. Great defender. He can hit the 3. So while it's not like the biggest signing in the world, that kind of role player plays a huge part. And because he's almost kind of like what Jay Crowder was for Miami in the bubble. He's a big forward. He can hit the 3 and he defends. So getting that's going to be a pretty good substitution because it did hurt them, the Heat, when they lost Jay Crowder. He ended up going over to the Suns, where he was super valuable to the Suns just as a veteran presence and for the skill set that he brings. The Heat were the 6th seed this past playoff. So I think with these new additions of Kyle Lowry and Markieff Morris. I think, you know, you're starting to see everything, and they kept Duncan Robinson. Not too sure. We're gonna have to wait for free agency, the rest of free agency, to see if they're gonna keep Tyler Hero or if they might try and package him to get, you know, maybe another player who will help them. But one way or another, this Heat already got a little bit better, so I could see them again running for that. You know, probably staying either right where they were, or maybe, you know, fighting for. Honestly, probably fighting for one of those, you know, 5 through 8, because I think the 76ers drop as well. I think you'll probably see either the Nets or the Bucks have that top seed. Now the Bucks lost PJ Tucker, which was a great defensive piece for them, but I think they should overall be fine, because Giannis is such a great defender that I think it just makes up for some of it. Drew Holiday obviously being a you know, first team All NBA defender. That team's going to be fine. They're going to be near the top of the Eastern Conference. Nets are going to be the top of the Eastern Conference. Excuse me. Sorry. The Knicks are going to be. I mean, the Bucks are going to be, and Nets are going to be top of the Eastern Conference. I think the Hawks are going to be a little bit better. I think they figured things out a little bit. I said that in a previous video before. But I think Hawks will be a little bit better. I think Knicks are already better, but we'll kind of see. I think some of these teams are going to figure it out. But I think Wizards are going to drop. I think the Celtics are probably going to stay in there. I think the Hornets are going to make a little bit of a push, just because I think LaMelo Ball is going to start developing, and as long as that team stays healthy, they're pretty good and they're a fun team. But again, that's not going to be a team that's going to be, you know, nearing the top or anything. But I think this Eastern Conference is already looking a little bit different, just from the two, you know, main teams in this free agency, which is obviously the Bulls and the Heat. I'm kind of happy with the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is obviously, in my lifetime, has always just been dubbed the weaker conference. So to see these teams putting stuff together and really being competitive, I like to see it, because it ultimately, you know, during the playoffs, when we get to the finals, it makes a better finals if both teams are just competitive. So, and I shouldn't even say that it's kind of been back and forth, because it has been. Eastern Conference team won, and they just won in 2019. It seems like it really does kind of flip, because obviously you had a bunch of championships with the Heat in the Eastern Conference, so then what rose right after that? San Antonio had a championship right in that Heat era, and then obviously Golden State came out right after that to try and, you know, the league always ends up balancing itself out, and I'm glad that the Eastern Conference is definitely getting better. It's been better for a few years, but right now I felt there's a lot of competitive teams, and I'm happy for Bulls fans. I'm definitely happy for them. But this video has gone on long enough. Thank you everybody for watching. Let me know how you think the Eastern Conference is already different than it was just a month ago. And let me know in the comments below, and I'll see y'all next time. See ya.